Hello and welcome to a Midwest special edition of the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove in Michigan, and I'm joined all the way from Minneapolis by Adam Belz. Adam, hello.
Hello, Daryl. We're closer than we usually are when we talk.
We are, right? And we're right in the Midwest, but the coastal people are allowed to listen and enjoy if they want to.
Yep. They're allowed.
They're allowed. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. I think we mentioned you and Scuffed and Greg enough that most of our listeners will know who you are. But before we get into today's topics, can I throw it to you to almost give yourself your own introduction? Could you let people know all about Scuffed?
Yes. Scuffed is a podcast that comes out weekly. We talk about the U.S. men's national team and young players who could one day make it better. That's kind of the tagline.
I love the tagline. I want to ask you this as well before we get going. It obviously started off as a newsletter, right? And then a Twitter feed, and then a Twitter feed and a podcast. And I was wondering, how conscious were you of that evolution, or did it accidentally happen?
It was pretty much accidental. I mean, I thought about the podcast format. You know, I listened to you guys, and I think you had me on in either late 2017 or early 2018 one time.
Yeah, I want to say we talked at length about Anthony Robinson. I want to revisit that later today.
Yeah, we did. We did a whole Fullbacks episode.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
that was awesome. Yeah. So it was. Short answer is I wasn't that conscious of it, but I've been consciously doing the Twitter thing for a long time now. I guess almost a year.
I would recommend to everybody to follow the Scuffed Twitter feed, which is, top of my head, Zlebdama.
Zlebmata is my name.
I was so close.
You were very close, yeah.
So let's get into it. The two things we're going to talk about today, hopefully people already know if they've seen the episode title. We're going to talk about MLS Decision Day a little bit, but we'll leave the details to the fine people at Extra Time Radio. And we're going to look bigger picture at the 2018 MLS regular season and the US men's national team eligible players who were or were not involved to greater and lesser extents. And then later we're going to talk US men's national team 1 year of playing the kids, which I'm super excited about because I feel like both our shows, you and Greg, I think you watch it more than once, right? From what I've heard, I feel like you guys watch it in detail.
Yeah, we watch the games usually twice.
Yeah, so same as us. But we both, I think, end up then getting really detailed about the specific game. And what I want today is almost to put our two brains together and then take a big, giant step backwards together and look at it all from a distance.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, should we start with Major League Soccer? First thing to note is the New York Red Bulls are your Supporters' Shield winners. In my head, they're the most play your kids team in Major League Soccer because they have this sort of academy pipeline. So I want to just offer up a softball to begin with. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, as you know, RSL, Real Salt Lake could make an argument, and there's a couple other clubs who could talk about their playing their kids. But yes, New York Red Bulls are the play your kids team, and it's great to see them do well and do it playing a style of soccer that's fun to watch too.
Yeah, no, I've got to say that as a genuine neutral in terms of Major League Soccer, but someone who I think I started this season saying I'm all about the young players, young Americans getting their chance in MLS this season. To see the Red Bulls win the Supporters' Shield with Aaron Long, Tyler Adams, all that going on. I'm going to count Derek Etienne Jr. as well with an asterisk maybe.
Right.
And then a team like the LA Galaxy with Zlatan and all that miss out on the playoffs. I'm taking this as hard evidence that you're better off trusting your academy instead of going out and getting Zlatan. He can do funny season ticket sales videos, but he won't necessarily get you above the dotted line.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd have to. It's not just playing your kids. The Galaxy would have to sort of build a better structure for getting the kids into the first team. So it's a little more complicated, I guess. And I know you know that, but yeah, it's great to see. It's great to see that contrast.
So I'll agree. Let's take a big step backwards to MLS as well. Then, in terms of playing your kids, which of the young Americans do you think got more minutes than you expected this season?
I'm going to forget somebody, but I'll list off a few.
Okay.
Chris Durkin is sort of the first one that comes to mind. I think he's got well over 1,000 minutes now on the season at the age of 18.
What were you expecting?
I don't know, not quite that much. And maybe, I don't know if I was going to put a number on it, 300 or 400 minutes or something like that.
Did you think maybe like an Andrew Carlton type experience where he gets two or maybe 3 starts?
Well, I guess we'll get to this, but I expected Andrew Carlton to play more than he has this season.
Okay.
But Durkin benefited from the fact that Russell Canoes was injured for pretty much the first half of the season. That's why he got to play so much. But that has been, I think, really good for him. He's gotten really valuable experience there.
It seemed to elevate as well towards the end. There was that clip that was going around of Durkin on the ball and sort of shifting himself out of trouble. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. So I feel like it's got progressively more impressive.
Yeah, it's like he's been taking lessons from Luciano Acosta.
Yeah.
How to dribble.
Yeah, I mean, it really could be like in practice, like, hey, show me how to do that.
Yeah, maybe so.
Senor Chris.
Mark, I think Mark McKenzie and Austin Trusty, the center back pairing for the Philadelphia Union, who are 19 and 20 respectively. That's been a really good player kid story for the season. They've had their ups and downs. Apparently, they had some downs today against FC.
But not all the way down, right? Because Union made the playoffs.
Yes, yeah, and they're different center backs, but they're both young. They're both good enough to keep starting for a playoff team in Major League Soccer. So that's good.
If our listeners aren't that familiar with them, could you maybe describe the differences between Trusty and McKenzie? Because I'm guilty of maybe lumping them in together too much because I keep thinking of them as a pair.
Yeah, I think the best way that I can think about it is Trusty is a little bit more alert to danger and what's happening.
Yeah.
And maybe over the span of the season has been a little bit more reliable on the ball.
Okay.
Like with his passing. But McKenzie is just an amazing athlete and smoother and more fluid. Like people run into him and just bounce off. And there's a clip going around earlier this week of all of his like dribbles past the New York Red Bulls press.
Yeah.
In a game last weekend, which was
I saw this. You and Greg talked about this on Scuffed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I was very excited to see that. It does seem like that's a thing that American centre backs are starting to do. I almost want them all to play against the New York Red Bulls to see who can handle it the best.
Right. Well, and he handled it really well in that game, and you could see that he has a little something that Trusty doesn't, which is the ability to glide past a defender and find somebody's feet. So I guess that's the difference between them, is the way I look at it.
Do you have any more insight or news or knowledge about what's going on with McKenzie and the playoffs and the U20 roster? Like, can he really do it all?
I think maybe Tab Ramos is just expecting the Union to lose in the knockout rounds. That's the best I can come up with. Because if Philadelphia wins on Wednesday, right? That's their first game.
I can't remember if it's Wednesday or Thursday, but I know they're playing NYCFC.
Yeah, if they lose, which they lost today to them. Then McKenzie's in the mix for the U20s, and I think that'll be welcome news for Tab. Yeah, so, I don't understand it.
Tab will be wearing sky blue in the middle of the week.
Yes, right.
Any other players that have overperformed in terms of minutes and just your expectations this year?
Yeah, well, the two really young guys, Gianluca Busio and George Bello. I think it's a little bit surprising to all of us that they both have gotten the chances that they have. Now, we're not talking about thousands of minutes or anything. It's a couple hundred for both. But they've at the age of 16, they've both gotten on the field for good MLS teams. SKC is the best team in the West, and Atlanta just only by way of disaster did not.
They got Marky Delgado.
Yeah, that's right. They did indeed. So those two guys, I did not expect them to play much, if at all.
Yeah.
And they've both played a significant role for their team. I think that's fair to say.
I think, unless I'm misunderstanding as well, I think Bello might have been involved at least from the bench today if he hadn't picked up an injury, right? So we might have got even more George Bello today if he hadn't gotten injured.
Right. Is that right? He was injured? I didn't see that.
I just sort of overheard it on the commentary, so I'm not sure how official it is. But
okay.
Yeah, so I think Garza got back on the field in the end because McCann came off. But so yeah, Bello, I'm going to put an asterisk and like add another 50 minutes to his to his MLS minutes in 2018. I think for those two, for me, Busio and Bello, those minutes this year are a springboard into 2019, right?
Yes, yeah, let's hope so. Mm-hmm. They both look ready for it when they were out there.
Absolutely, especially for 16-year-olds. Anyone else before we get to the sad business of the players that have underplayed this year?
Well, there's some news today. This midfielder for Colorado, Cole Bassett, scored a goal.
Yeah, I emailed you earlier. I genuinely had not heard of him, but yeah, he scored for Colorado against Dallas. What do you know about him?
I haven't watched him play yet, I'll have to admit, and I don't know that much about him. The people I talk to who have watched him play and who follow this stuff pretty closely don't rate him like on the high end. You know, he's not that highly rated by them, but that's just me and a bunch of other people who watch a lot of soccer talking. So who knows?
Okay, so yeah, but maybe a name to remember, Cole Bassett, since he has scored at the age of, I believe, 17. In Major League Soccer,
it was a tidy little finish too.
It certainly was. Okay, who are you disappointed about? Not necessarily disappointed with because of their performance, but maybe disappointed that you didn't see more of them in Major League Soccer in 2018.
Andrew Carlton's the one that comes immediately to mind. Now he's played about the same number of minutes as Bello, but that's coming off a season where he got on the field a few times in 2017 for Atlanta. So I'm not saying it's anybody's fault that except for, just reality's fault that he didn't get to play more. I'm not one of those who says like Tata's a villain for that. but he looked pretty good when he was on the field for Atlanta United. I think he started 2 games on the season and made a couple other cameos. He looked pretty good to me. He just didn't get consistent chances. And, you could argue that Atlanta was running out of steam today in Toronto when they lost 4-1. And, rotation has been something, or lack of rotation has been something Tata Martino has been criticized for in the past. So that's a little bit disappointing to me. And
what do you think Tata would say is the reason that Carlton only, got that couple of starts, or not as many minutes as we expected?
Yeah, if you got him drunk on a really good Malbec, and I think Tata would say he doesn't press hard enough or with enough purpose.
I see.
I that's just me guessing, but I think that's probably it, because you look at the way Miguel Almiron presses in their system. He's just a menace. He works so hard. And Carlton just looks like he's kind of sort of figuring it out there when he's on defense.
Is it possible that we're all clamoring for an American number 10, right? But is it possible that Andrew Carlton is too much of a number 10? He's not that fast, right? And he's not that big or strong. So he really is, in some ways, that very old school luxury 10 where he has to create enough. Like, you'd expect him to like break open defenses with passing or shooting or something, that it has to be worth the trade-off for all the stuff he's not doing. And as an 18-year-old without that many professional minutes, I don't think that balance is quite there yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's got work to do on that front. It's interesting to think about it that way, because Almiron is a 10, right? But he's also kind of a winger, and he's he's just tackling people all the time, and you're not going to get that from Carlton at this stage in his career. So maybe he is too much of a 10.
How do you feel about Carlton? Say it's what, a year since the U17 World Cup, where we all got excited about him. Is he maybe not as good of a player as we maybe hoped at that time, or is it too early to tell?
I'm not ready to say that. I think he has growing to do. I mean, I think everybody sort of agrees on that.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that he did in that U17 World Cup, particularly the game against Paraguay, was he played passes and created goals with his passing that you don't see American players doing very often. And he still can do that stuff. He's done that stuff at the USL level, and he did it even a little bit for the first team this year.
Yeah, he had that assist to Martinez, right?
Right. Yeah. And he had like an almost assist to Martinez in his last weekend that didn't quite come off. Anyway, I think that sort of those moments of magic are there, and that's why we were excited about him. And he still has those moments of magic. It's just a matter of consistency and doing the work on defense.
From my angle, I would say that it's not that we should give up on him. I think he could still be like even an important player for the US men's national team. But I feel like at one point I'm not necessarily including you in this, but I think me for sure, we were almost putting all our chips on Carlton. Whereas now, when I take a step back, I realise there's so many other players coming through that really he's just one of many, right? And it's not as if maybe Carlton doesn't become the player we expect him to become. I'm not going to be in tears about it because there are so many other players to be excited about.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I would put myself in that camp too. Maybe not all my chips, but an inordinate number of my chips were probably on Carlton. And now I know there are other players like Richie Ledesma.
Yes, exactly.
Who I think I'm just as excited about.
So has anyone else got fewer minutes than you hoped for?
Real quickly, Jonathan Lewis at NYCFC. I think people were excited about him as a attacking winger. Mm-hmm. He hasn't really gotten much of a chance with NYCFC. He went on loan to Louisville, and I don't think played extremely well there. Danny Acosta is the other one that comes to mind, the left back at Real Salt Lake. He just hasn't played for months.
Yeah, now. I think Aaron Herrera has now replaced him as the
another right? U.S. Youth International. Yeah. Did
we ever get the full story behind that? Because I know there was some sort of disagreement, I guess, with Petke, but did it ever get resolved?
No, I mean, not that I know of. I don't even know what needed to be resolved. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the word was like Acosta came back from January camp acting like he owned the place or something. And I don't know. Who knows what happened. But I'm surprised because, he was tapped as a potential national team left back, even by Dave Sarakin, who called him up for January camp. Yeah. And he's just disappeared. So
weirdly, even when we do our left back depth chart, he still ends up on there because the depth chart is not that deep, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's the same for me. He's still in the spreadsheet for sure.
Okay, before we move on to happier things, is there anyone else that didn't?
I can't think of any. Can you think of any?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah, I'm sure there is someone, and someone's tweeting it at us right now.
Yeah, right. Can you think of anybody who got more minutes than you expected this season, besides the ones I mentioned?
Yes. Lindsay, the fullback.
Oh yeah, of course.
Is it Jalen Lindsay?
Yes.
Yeah. For some reason I just didn't. I think because of the Eric Palmer Brown experience, which is my least favorite band. I was basically concerned about Peter Vermeer's commitment to playing young players. And because of Lindsay getting decent minutes, right, and lots of starts, and Busio just being allowed to wet his beak a little bit, I now have more faith in Peter Vermeer as someone willing to, as I understand it, after a good long look and lots of consideration, put his faith in some younger players. And I wonder if maybe the Eric Palmer Brown thing was more about EPB wanting to move on. So Vermeer's maybe thinking, well, why should I break up the Opara Beasler combo if you're going to be on your bike over to Europe anyway? Yeah,
so, Vermeer, that's a good point. Vermeer has sort of improved his profile among the player kids folks this year. And now EPB can't even get on the field in Belgium, so maybe he looks smart. Maybe Vermeer looks smart.
Yeah, and I think there was also an element of, in hindsight as well, your centre-back pairing is so important that maybe you don't break up a good partnership and take any chances in that way, especially if it's not someone who's going to be around for the long term, right? And my understanding of Vermeer is that he is, because he's technical director as well, right? So he's like Sporting KC through and through. Like
he's also God. He's also God.
Yeah, it's like it's a trifecta of a job title. So he's not thinking about the future of the US men's national team. He's thinking about the future of Sporting KC.
Right.
Which is fair, right? That's what he's paid to do, unless there's a big surprise when Ernie Stewart makes an announcement.
Yeah, and I'll say one other thing that makes me excited about that is that they're a good team, you know?
Yeah.
And winning, like when a young player gets a chance from a coach who has a winning team, it's something about that's even better for me, you know?
Yeah. That makes me extra excited about Brucio because it's such a young, skinny kid to take a chance on that it means that there's got to be something there. I've heard on your show that you're not all in on Gianluca Busio, right? But there seems to be something there.
I've warmed up to him in the last few weeks. The performance against Vancouver, he would actually look pretty bad for the first 10 minutes he was out there, and then the last 20 minutes he was out there, he was the best player on the field. So
yeah. Oh, one guy that we didn't talk about, Reggie Cannon. Like he's gone the full gamut, right? Like he's become FC Dallas starting right back, and he just got his US men's national team debut. And there's even a reasonably large group of people who would now, after one game, maybe say that they prefer him to start at right back over DeAndre Yedlin. Yeah,
I would count myself maybe among that crowd.
Yeah,
it's a great shout. Who would have guessed that he would start every single game for FC Dallas? For Oscar Pareja, a coach who shipped Kellyn Acosta, benched Ja'Cory Hayes, and so he's obviously earned it there, and I would like to see him in every national team camp for which he is available henceforth.
Yep, I think the only person who wouldn't like that is maybe DeAndre Yedlin.
Yeah.
What about maybe the players that we knew would play, but we were looking for them to make progress? Is there anyone that you see over the course of MLS 2018 regular season that you've seen improve and progress as a player?
Well, I mean, I think Durkin has improved, and you sort of mentioned that earlier. You watch a lot of Durkin. What do you think? Do you think he's improved over the course of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the lucky spot where I managed to see him through his first couple seasons in USL for the Richmond Kickers, and in a weird way, I've just seen him become the same player that he was in USL, but in Major League Soccer. But with knowing that there's a big leap between those two leagues. So I see that as him upping his game to match where he's at, if that makes any sense. And I think just looking at the big picture, I also really like the idea of him being in a sort of battle with Russell Canaus, who's another player that, you know, a lot of people are, I think, correctly quite excited about. I really love the idea that he's earned minutes, right? Like maybe when Canaus is injured, but, you know, Durkin's earned his minutes on the field.
Yeah, at such a young age, it's easy to forget he's just like barely 18.
Yeah.
So.
One guy, the guy. Sorry to move us on. Right, the guy that I was really watching this year, and I mean, I know I talk about this a lot, but Tyler Adams. Right, there's 2017. We saw him as the right wing back essentially for New York Red Bulls. 2018, I think we all talked about at the start of the season. This is the year where he plays central midfield, so he gets to the keys to the midfield, and I think it's gone about as well as I could have hoped.
Yeah. I agree. I still have my misgivings about him on the ball, but off the ball, you couldn't ask for anything more. I mean, he's an absolute terror for the opponent, and he wins so many balls. He's so alert and quick. You know, he's always in the right spot to intervene.
Yeah, I scanned through the Red Bulls Orlando game earlier today because obviously that's a big win for Red Bulls. That's the win that won them the Supporters' Shield. And I really just thought, okay, I'll see what we can see from Tyler Adams. The first thing I landed on was Tyler Adams stepping and sort of intercepting / blocking an attempted through ball. I think they didn't maintain possession. I think it just careened off in the air. But he absolutely cut out an Orlando attack. And I really was just landing randomly at a spot in the game.
Yeah, there's probably 15 or 20 moments like that in the game. I was only able to watch the first half, but he was doing that kind of stuff throughout the game. What a huge asset for both club and country.
So what is it that you don't like on the ball?
Just like his ability to receive the ball in tight space cleanly, and I mean we've talked about this before, but
we have, yeah.
His ability to receive the ball in tight space, turn, and find a pass.
He did have a moment, another moment I saw against Orlando where he did do it was a weird turn, right? It was almost like he went the wrong way and surprised. I'm going to guess you haven't seen this, right? Because this is just like my random watching.
I might have seen it in the highlights. Was it the one where he played it to Royer and Royer hit the shot? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost, do you get what I'm saying though? Like it's not the turn you would have expected. So it's almost like he went in the wrong direction and that threw off the entire Orlando defense.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I mean, that was a nice play and a nice pass, and probably should have been an assist if Royer puts it to either side of the keeper.
Yeah. So do you, if you look at Tyler Adams now, do you think this kid could do with 2019 MLS to learn some more about how to run a midfield at the next level where he can receive in tight space and then really control a game in that way, right? Because if you can receive a ball under pressure and make something happen every time, then you are the boss of the entire game, right?
Right.
Or do you think that the time is now to move to Europe? Because to give you my quick perspective,
yeah, I want to hear what you think about that question.
I want him to go because I'm just impatient. But I do worry that he could go to, because the rumor is Leipzig, right? That he goes to RB Leipzig, that he could go there and then suddenly struggle, and then this whole thing stalls. And I almost want him to be fully baked before we send him over to Europe.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm impatient. I want him to go, but I also think it's just from a development perspective, it probably makes more sense for him to go. He's not going to learn how to play in tight space better in New York than he is at Leipzig.
Yeah.
That's the thing he probably needs to take the next step on. And I feel like going and challenging for a spot at a Bundesliga club is the best way to do it.
I guess, yeah, I think what I've just realized is that I've become such a Tyler Adams fan that I want him to have this perfect trajectory. But really, it's better for him to maybe struggle for 3 or 6 months and come out stronger for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe, and maybe it will be a perfect transition. I mean, I guess I don't know if Leipzig plays a double pivot, but I think he works really well in a double pivot, with another holding midfielder sitting next to him.
Yeah, they've moved it around a bit. I actually just looked at their lineup today. Why was I looking at it? Oh, because they played Schalke. So they tied 0-0 with Schalke. I didn't see the game.
A beautiful soccer game.
A beautiful soccer game, I'm sure. But it looked, according to the lineups, it looked like they played a sort of diamond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I know in the past they've gone with the old 4-2-2-2.
Yeah, so he could be on one of the sides of the diamond just fine, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'd be very happy with that. Yeah.
I want him to go. I hope it's widely reported that he's going in January.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's true.
How about Kellyn Acosta? I think that's a really interesting one because his MLS 2018 has been wild, right? It was not at all what any of us expected.
Yeah, I don't feel that strongly about Acosta. I'm not sure that he's going to be like that hot of a commodity.
If he goes to Europe,
like what league would want him?
I don't know. I think if you dropped him in the Premier League, he's not going to see minutes just because it's hyper competitive. I am thinking Eredivisie sort of mid-table. Maybe that Michael Bradley Herenveen move from back in the day might be a Kellyn Acosta move.
Yeah, I guess that's the one that comes to mind for me. I don't think he would get minutes at a Bundesliga club, and definitely not the Premier League. So yeah, Holland's sort of the next step down, right?
Yeah, and the thing I quite like is his season ended on something of a high, right? I know Colorado Rapids did not cover themselves in glory, but it did end with Kellyn Acosta taking that corner, getting an assist to beat FC Dallas on the final day of the season. I think there's some small measure of redemption there.
Yeah, if he can go, I hope he goes to a mid-table Eredivisie side, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to go, I guess.
So because you basically you don't think he's good enough, or because you don't think the situation's right, or like what's your
I just don't think he's quite good enough. I mean, he's good at some things. He's like, his set pieces are magnificent. He's like pretty good at some of the basic midfield stuff, but he's not really good at any of it. That's my Acosta take. I
think I'm kind of high on him after the Peru game. I was when we rewatched, we were really impressed and thought that maybe, as well as Delgado, Kellyn Acosta was the guy that made that 4-1-4-1 work by knowing when to go high and when to come deep and when to block off space, and to provide a sort of attacking threat and a defensive threat. And I wonder if maybe I'm just overinterpreting my one the one game where I was really impressed with him?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't accuse you of that, Daryl. But
Do you think I'd kick you off the show in the middle of the episode?
No, I mean he does some good things, but like just like Adams, I think his ability to receive the ball in tight space and then sort of work his way out of it, do something elegant to solve that little puzzle, and then find somebody's feet. That's where he lacks, and you combine that with the fact he's not nearly the destroyer Tyler Adams is, like not even close. And I don't know. I mean, I hope he can go to somewhere like Holland. But then you run into like the whole transfer fee and MLS keeping some of it. And I mean, how much does a Dutch club want to pay for a Kellyn Acosta type player? And how much will Colorado demand for him? I don't know.
I've just realized it's a big winter for him, isn't it? Because obviously things went badly at Dallas, and I think he essentially fell out with the coaching staff there, right? My understanding is that the move to Colorado was essentially put me in the shop window, let me get my form back, and then I'm going to try and be off in the winter. And I think if he's still a Colorado player in March 2019, then we're sort of rumbling on towards his mid-20s still in Major League Soccer.
Yeah. It wouldn't be ideal for him. I mean, I'll just say I've said a lot of mean things about him, but I will add that I was really impressed with the way he played against Portugal last fall. I thought he was maybe the best player for the U.S. in that game where he drew Portugal 1-1.
Did he play centrally or did he play on the right? I can't remember if it was him or Adams that played right or center.
Adams was on the right, so it was Acosta and McKennie together in the middle, and they were really difficult to play through, and they created a lot of moments of transition and did a lot of good stuff together. So, hope he goes to Holland.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like we've persuaded each other that we're all in on the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Learn some Dutch, Kellyn. Learn some Dutch and learn to learn to ride a bike in heavy bicycle traffic.
Right.
How about if we're looking at the MLS playoffs that are about to get going? There's the knockout round. I'm going to read them out just for listeners. It's LAFC versus Real Salt Lake. It's Dallas versus the Timbers. It's NYCFC versus Philly Union, and it's DC United versus Columbus Crew. If you're looking at this purely from a US perspective, which team are you hoping progresses? Like which team catches your eye the most, and you think, I want to see the young players on that team get to the conference semis and the conference final?
Well, it's pretty easy when you take it from a U.S. men's national team perspective. I want Real Salt Lake to beat LAFC, which I don't think they're going to do because RSL absolutely backed their way into this thanks to Galaxy's choke job. But that's mostly because I want to see Justin Glad make the next step. He's had kind of RSL hasn't had a great season, and when your team doesn't have a great season, then it's has something to do with the center backs. If they can make some kind of run in the playoffs and he can like really announce himself, that would be great for the national team player pool.
Where do you stand on Brooks Lennon?
I don't think he probably has that much future with the national team. Do you think he does?
I can't say that I've seen enough of him at right back to know if this was a successful conversion or not. I do know that every time I see him, I love the way he crosses. Like I think he really serves in a great ball. And I'm also really aware of his age. I've forgotten exactly how old he is, like 21, 22 maybe.
Probably 21. Yeah.
20, so it's still... I think we've gone so teenage in the players that we're excited about. There's this middle age group is the one that we've failed with in the past. And it's almost like when you're 21, it's more important what happens to you. So I don't want to give up on any players in that age group just yet.
Okay. Yeah, I won't give up on him either. I just don't, he's not super dangerous with the ball at his feet, except for that, like looping cross that he plays, which is very beautiful.
Yeah. Maybe if everyone just clears out and gives him space to do it.
I mean, who would you rather take? Right. Who would you rather take, Lennon or Cannon right now? I think everybody would say Reggie Cannon.
I'd say Cannon because of the Peru performance and just because I've seen more of him. If I'm honest, so I wouldn't be confident taking Lennon because I haven't seen enough of him. How about the Union? You want to see McKenzie and Trusty maybe go deep?
I do, yeah. NYCFC has James Sands and Jonathan Lewis, but they're unlikely to see the field, you would think. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm pulling for the Union in that one. Dallas versus the Timbers. I don't really feel anything about that game, to be honest. Do you?
Except maybe to keep an eye on Reggie Cannon.
Oh yeah, of course.
And Abobase, maybe. I know he's been playing more towards the end of the season, right? So we might see Jeremy Abobase in a Timbers shirt in the playoffs.
Yes, that would be cool. So now all of a sudden I feel all sorts of things about that game.
I can say for Total Soccer Show listeners, if you'll forgive me this sort of quick self-promotion, Adam, I know we haven't paid enough attention to Major League Soccer recently on TSS, but we're going to cover every single playoff game. We're going to have a good go at covering every single playoff game, especially this week with the knockout round games. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'll look forward to listening to you guys talk about it. Thanks. And it'll be, we'll be seeing some players for the first time in a while, like young Mr. Brooks Lennon.
Right.
How about the fact that the Crew made it to the playoffs? I would imagine that some people at Soccer House are very, very relieved. Do you care that Greg Berhalter made the playoffs?
I'm also relieved, just because not because I'm like some big Greg Berhalter fan, but I've assume that he's going to be the coach. All indications are that he's already got the job.
Yeah.
So for him to not make the playoffs would just be like seems like it'd be a disaster. And I'm also rooting for the Crew to beat DC for the same reason, because the better Berhalter does, the more energy he can come into the new job with. And and that's even though DC is one of the more fun teams to watch in the league, and it's a great story, and they're probably not going to lose to the Crew. I think it'd be better for the national team if Berhalter can make a little run here.
Can we talk about this Berhalter thing? I'm not sure if I've heard you guys talk about it on Scuffed. So we haven't got any on Total Soccer Show. We haven't got any inside sources that are telling us, hey, it's definitely Berhalter, but we can't say it officially yet. And people I've spoken to, like other media people, no one seems to have no one's been told that it's Berhalter, but yet everybody agrees that it's Greg Berhalter. And I'm wondering sort of how do you think this thing has developed?
Yeah, palace intrigue isn't really like our strong suit on the Scuffed podcast, and so I don't have any sources telling me that he's the coach. It's just what everybody's saying, so I'm like, sure, I guess that's what's going to be.
But you don't think it's weird that like a consensus has emerged among journalists and podcasts and everybody that it's definitely Greg Berhalter, and US Soccer's not doing a good job of denying it? But there's no official source that we can find.
My guess is that some reporters are being told it off the record.
Okay.
Interesting.
All could be revealed very soon, right? I mean, early November is what we keep getting told.
Yeah, well, when the Crew lose to DC in the middle of this coming week, it'll be announced, right?
Do you really think it could be that simple? It's Berhalter as soon as the Crew are out?
I don't know. I don't know anything about it, to be honest. Just what I read, like everybody else.
All right, I feel like I've grilled you enough on Greg Berhalter. Are you ready to talk US men's national team?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go for it. I feel like you've tolerated my MLS questions just to get to the US men's national team part. And some listeners
I like
may feel
the MLS too. I like MLS too. I love the drama today. It was a wild day.
Today's Total Soccer Show is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek. Getting tickets online can be complicated. There's loads of sites. It's confusing. You don't know who to trust. SeatGeek is the way to go. SeatGeek searches multiple ticket sites and grades every ticket based on value. We heard last week that TSS listener Andrew Giannis used SeatGeek to get DC United tickets, and he saw DC United clinch a playoff spot and Wayne Rooney wave to him. So we thought maybe SeatGeek was a guaranteed way of getting your team to make the playoffs. But then we heard midweek from Nick Glass, who said he used SeatGeek to get Chris Rock tickets, and Chris Rock did not make the playoffs. Although, if we did comedy playoffs, I'm pretty sure Chris Rock would be hosting a home game. Speaking of playoffs, the SeatGeek app has an MLS Cup knockout round section, so you can scroll through and see all the tickets to those midweek games. A reminder, it's LAFC versus Real Salt Lake, it's Dallas versus the Timbers, it's NYCFC versus Philly Union, and it's DC United versus Columbus Crew. If you'd like to see one of those games and you'd like to get $20 off your purchase, you can get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase when you download the SeatGeek app. That part is free. enter the promo code TSS. That's TSS for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets. So this is the big question that I wanted to ask you. October 2017, the whole disaster. November 2017, for me, I got what I wanted immediately in terms of the young players being called up, right? It was Adams, it was McKennie. Like you said, it was Acosta in midfield starting. How do you feel after a year of playing the kids? Are you as excited as you expected to be, or do you have some disappointments?
I'm as excited as I expected to be. I think it's gone better than I expected in that we've actually done it. Yeah. Played a lot of young players. I'm
still surprised, right? I'm still shocked that guys like Weyer and Sargent especially were called up.
Right. Guys who aren't even playing for their clubs now. And I think those two in particular and Jonathan Amon, some young attacking talent, have risen to the challenge. And I think that's maybe the most exciting thing about all this is that we have these young attackers who've gotten a chance and showed that they can at least be dangerous, and in Sargent's case, maybe even be the best player on the field for 60 minutes. And so I think in that sense, we've been able to sort of conclusively move past the mid-level attacking talent that sort of dominated outside of Pulisic in the last cycle.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And that's great. That's been the most exciting thing for me. And then we've...
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to ask, are you surprised at how mature Sargent and Weyer seemed to look? Because I would have bet good money beforehand that these guys would not be ready, right? I would have bet that even after watching Sargent be really strong and hold up play in the U17 World Cup and then not be fazed by the U20 World Cup, I still expected when he came up against adult centre-backs that someone would just knock him over. And it didn't happen at all. And I am absolutely shocked. He's almost like some weird counterfactual to the idea that you have to be playing full professional soccer before you can play international soccer.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. He was, especially in that game against Peru, he was so good. You know, he had 4 or 5 moments of attacking inventiveness that we have not gotten from our other strikers, with all due respect.
With all due
Josie Altidore and Bobby Wood.
What do you like to see in the future in terms of say Altidore and Wood? Are you in the camp of like, all right, maybe no more Altidore, like let's just go all in with Sargent, or do you see it more of a balance type thing?
Well, I'm not in the camp of like no more Altidore. I think he should keep getting chances. You know, he should get healthy. He's got a bad foot injury right now. He's just had surgery, didn't he? So when he gets back, he needs to show it with his club, and then earn another call up. I guess.
I'm with you on that. Exactly. I think that the idea with guys who genuinely aren't old in terms of soccer, which is how I would class Altidore. He's 27 maybe, and Bradley, who I think is 30. I would argue that we just make it a full meritocracy. Right, and then Altidore has to compete against Sargent, and Bradley has to compete against Adams and McKennie, and we don't cut them off because of what happened in Trinidad. We just open it up and say, hey, you can compete for minutes with this guy, and we don't care how many caps you've got or how experienced you are. You have to be better than him and have at it.
Yeah. Totally agree. Bring him. So it's a little bit of a double standard if Altidore has to do well with his club to get another call up, and Sargent doesn't even have to play for his club and keep getting call ups. But Sargent looked really good for the national team.
Yeah.
The last few times he's played, really. And so yeah, just make it a straight up meritocracy and may the best man win. I don't think we're so deep at striker that we don't have a place for Altidore anymore. He's going to belong in a first choice 23, I think, for the foreseeable future.
Because that's the other thing, right? When you're picking a striker, it's not like you're picking one man to be married to for the rest of your life, right? It's when you're picking a national team pool, it's very much I've got to be careful with this metaphor, but it's very polyamorous, right? You got to get you need a wide selection of players, because you could say I'm all in with Sargent and Altidore needs to be gone, but Sargent could get injured, for example, and then you need someone else. And in some ways, so I heard you and Greg talk about the flicks and the through balls and the sort of reverse pass type stuff, all that connectivity that Sargent did. I've seen Altidore do a lot of that same stuff, and I feel like in some ways they could be similar-ish players and like for like replacements. Like I'd say they're more alike than they're like Bobby Wood, right? Yeah,
I totally agree. Yeah, Altidore and Sargent are more similar than either of them is to Wood. So we talked about Weah and Sargent kind of exceeding our expectations in many ways. Is there anyone that you've been disappointed with over the past year of the Play Your Kids revolution? In the Play Your Kids revolution, I can't think of anybody I'm disappointed with. Can you think of anybody you're disappointed with?
I would. So disappointed is obviously a strong term. I know I chose it and now I regret it. But I remember our conversation about Anthony Robinson and how excited we both were in 2017. And I think after seeing him come up against some really high-end attackers in Douglas Costa for Brazil and in the James Arias combo down Colombia's right side, and he wasn't helped by Kenny Saif, right? But I think we really saw some of his defensive frailties that I did not know were there based on what I'd seen in the championship. Yeah,
that's true. I cannot disagree there. I think the issue with Robinson though is that who else is going to play left back?
Yeah,
he's obviously deficient in some major ways, but a lot of it is like mental. Don't you think? Mostly mental and sort of the angles he takes as a defender, stuff that he should be able to figure out.
Yeah, and when I hear mental, I think of like. I'm not sure if this is what you mean, but I think of the idea of like maybe switching off and not paying attention. Whereas,
he does that too, I think.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm not willing to go all in on that with you, but I'm definitely willing to go all in on the idea of the angles. His angles look weird to me sometimes.
I saw a highlight of him over the weekend against Sheffield United where Sheffield United won the game 4-2 over Wigan Athletic. And the first goal was one that Robinson could do nothing about it. Nothing he could have done for that first goal would have changed the outcome of the play. But he did this weird thing, which I've seen him do like 2 or 3 times now, where while the ball is in the box, he just sort of becomes an observer and almost like starts backing up. Now, just to be clear, the goal happened on the other side, on the back post, and he was on the near post. But he became a spectator and was like backing away while the ball was skipping around in the box. And I don't know, didn't love it. Didn't love to see that.
So is this more of, maybe I'm theorizing, but maybe this is his, we think of him as basically an attacking fullback, right?
Yeah.
So is there a chance that he's just thinking, all right, let's wait for this whole thing to be over, and then maybe the ball comes to me and I'll attack down the left.
I'll make a 95-yard run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe because that's where his big benefit to the national team is, in his overlapping runs and his pace and his ability to cross the ball. So those things are all good, but yeah, he has been a disappointment among the player kids. But he's the only guy who can play left back right now. I mean, we could bring back in Jorge Villafana. I don't think we want to bring Lehigh back.
Yeah, I'm with you.
George Bello?
George Bello's 16 and has played, a couple times in Major League Soccer. And then, but at the other end, like the Tim Weah, Josh Sargent thing suggests that, hey, maybe we just do it.
Bring him in January camp.
Yeah. Doesn't Greg advocate for that? Just go all in on January camp.
Yeah, we're going to put together some like modest January camp proposal episode. And
like a Jonathan Swift style, very modest.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Play your babies.
Bring in everybody who's even gotten like a single minute.
So I also I've advocated for this idea as well that we have found some deficiencies with Anthony Robinson, but that's the price of playing inexperienced guys against Brazil and Colombia. And now we know what the weaknesses are. I think we just keep soldiering on, right?
Yeah, I think that's what we got to do. We know what his weaknesses are. We know what his strengths are, and if somebody better comes along or if he improves, then that whole equation changes. But for now, I still think he's probably barely the first choice left back.
I've also I'm sort of stealing myself to say this. I have been somewhat disappointed with Weston McKennie because if we're talking about the whole year, right, he had such a strong start because he scored against Portugal, right? And we've seen him all the the video. Taylor and I talk about this a lot of how he looks like the fun leader of the group in many ways, like he's keeping things buoyant. But apart from that thing where he bust the game against that very bad Bolivia team, which almost doesn't count, I've not since seen him really impress for the US. Never horrible, but never the Weston McKennie that I'm hoping to see. Yeah,
I'd agree. And I'm like the biggest Weston McKennie fan in the Western Hemisphere. So I think we need to work out how to help him excel for the national team. Like that's going to be the job of the next coach, or one of the main jobs of the next coach, is figure out how to get Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie on the field together in the middle of the pitch and get them to play well. It may be impossible. I don't think it is. I think the setup has been kind of crummy. I don't think Dave Sarachan's that great of a coach.
Yeah.
And I think that midfield trio is like sort of the most complicated and difficult part to solve in this whole puzzle.
We had a question on the Total Soccer show maybe a month ago where a listener asked, are Adams and McKennie going to be the Gerrard and Lampard of the United States? And we basically came down on no, because because neither of them is a goal scorer. Yeah, and they're both a bit more two-way, right? Than Gerrard or Lampard were both very much one-way, and then were asked to do defensive jobs, whereas Adams and McKennie can both do a bit of both. And I would still stand by that answer in theory, but we've never actually seen evidence of it in a US men's national team game. Right. Yeah, we haven't. And McKennie really struggled against Brazil, I thought. He had a couple nice moments, but never really got into that game. And Adams looked quite a bit better in that game. And then in the first half of the Mexico game, I actually think neither Adams nor McKennie looked good. And then Adams looked much better in the second half when Julian Green came on for McKennie and they changed the formation. Yes, yeah, the 4-2-3-1 switch. Right. What about the idea of, say, Delgado, who's a guy we didn't talk about, but I think he's had a good MLS season and scored for Toronto today in that win over Atlanta. And I know you're a big fan, right? I joked about titling this episode Mikey Delgado for president. I have this idea that either Delgado or Acosta or someone like that who, for want of a better word, is less of a sexy pick. Like, it's not like this, we're the future type thing, because he's in his early 20s and he's like bounced around MLS for a long time. Not bounced around, but been around MLS for a long time. Yeah. But maybe he is the glue guy or the alloy for either Adams or McKennie, so that you have someone else that makes the whole thing work a bit better. Yeah, that's really the biggest reason why I'm so excited about Delgado, or why I'm such a fan of Delgado, is because I think we need to try he and McKennie and Adams together somehow. Because I think he'd do exactly what you say, be the glue, help them calm things down and connect a few passes. When McKennie can play a pass out of a weird situation that wrong foots the whole defense, Yeah. Like that's I've seen him do that many times for Schalke. He did it for the US in that Portugal game quite a few times too. And that's what I think we did. We don't really have anybody else like that. Not even Adams or Delgado necessarily. But he needs like in like sort of the day-to-day work of the midfield, the moment-to-moment work of the midfield. I think Delgado would do him a lot of good by calming things down. Does that make sense? Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Yeah, and it's almost just someone to connect to as well, right? Like Delgado would literally win the ball and give it to him. Yeah, or give it to this very basic unit. Right, or give it to Adams, running forward with 40 yards of space in front of him, and then they would have to figure out who covers for who. But yeah, one thing I keep thinking about as well is how many times players have been unavailable over the past year, and I'm not thinking specifically Christian Pulisic, although obviously he's a big part of that. But I'm thinking of like Adams and McKennie had to drop out of the last roster, and that's why Acosta and Delgado came in, and it's all these weird combinations that. I'm starting to think of the idea that we should never say, all right, these are the three guys that it has to be. It's almost like we need to figure out a system where we can plug and play maybe 5 or 6 different central midfielders so that we can start working on a thing even when not everybody's available or fully healthy or whatever.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what do you think about the whole 4-1-4-1 versus the 4-2-3-1? Because I guess that's what this sort of all comes down to.
Yeah, I would like to. I've come around to the idea that we don't need to be so black and white about it. I am hoping that, say, under the next coach, that we can have a system that is almost both in a weird way. Like, so it wouldn't be, say, Julian Green as the 10. It would be Acosta, or it would be McKennie or Delgado or someone like that as like nominally sometimes a 10, but also sometimes the third guy in that central midfield. So it can be like you could write it up as a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. And I'm really thinking of what Acosta did against Peru, which was a bit of both. And I would like to see a formation that isn't necessarily one thing or the other. It's a bit more fluid and dynamic. And I know from listening to your last episode that Greg Velasquez would hate that.
Yeah, he really hates the 4-1-4-1 at this point. I guess it's just a question of will people know their roles and will they be able to, keep those sorted out? And I don't know. It seems a little more complicated with the 4-1-4-1 or the 4-3-3 than it does with that 4-2-3-1.
Well, I'm of the mind that so it's such like the template that US Soccer is going for, right? It's what the development academies play is the Tab Ramos 4-1-4-1/4-3-3 a 6 and 2 8s. It feels almost inevitable that that's the shape we're going to have to play. And I quite like the idea of, even if we've seen it not work a few times, of making it work, because at least then we're playing a system from U15 all the way up to the senior men's national team.
We just don't have like a really good true number 6 right now, though. Wouldn't you agree? Like
I think we have more guys who could play the 6 somewhat successfully, like Adams, McKennie, and so on, than we have guys who can play the 10 officially successfully. Because we basically have just a deep pool of number 8s who have some. Because you did the whole show about like which guys can play number 10, right? And it was a lot of number 8s who have the various traits of an attacking midfielder, but they all more have defensive midfielder, except for Nagbe, have more defensive midfielder tendencies. So I kind of think that we should lean into that more because we have more of that style of player.
Okay, I'll have to take that back to Greg and challenge him with it.
Yeah, because you guys use the phrase. I guess I want to recommend people go listen to that show because I think it's a really good sort of analysis of the pros and cons of each possible number 10. But the thing I came away from it thinking of, essentially we don't have one, so maybe we shouldn't play with one.
Right. Yeah. It's just that game against Mexico, it was such a night and day difference in the way we looked. And obviously this is a very small sample size. It's 45 minutes. But something about Julian Green, a player about his role in the field, a player I don't particularly rate at all, really helped us become more fluid. It sort of unlocked Tim Weah and, conceivably would unlock Christian Pulisic.
I agree. I think the change in shape is what changed that game. Like, it wasn't like Julian Green did anything particularly impressive, right? Except be the guy that made the change in shape happen. He
was available to the front three, consistently.
Yeah. And then he would take the ball and run in a straight line and shoot.
Right. Or stop a counterattack by dribbling sideways.
Yeah. But the other thing I've been thinking about a lot is we always talk, Taylor and I talk, and you and Greg talk about, what's the strongest 11 for the United States. And I always think that we need to find a way to have a strongest 11 that's a little bit adaptable so that when we play against a weaker opponent, we can be on the front foot. And when we play against a Colombia or a Brazil, we can be more counter-attacky. Because I almost feel like that was the mistake that Bruce Arena made, right? Was having that 4-1-3-2 type shape or 4-4-2 shape to smash Panama. But then it should have been more defensive to go away to Trinidad, right? He just put the same attacking formation out twice and got 2 very different results.
Yeah, he thought we were going to win 4-0 or something.
I think he did, yeah. And in some ways, I can't believe I've taken us all the way back to October 2017. But in some ways, he was very brave and optimistic, right? I think that gets missed. He was very much yeah, I'm going to send my guys out and we're going to smash this team, and I'm confident in American soccer. And he was just very, very wrong.
Yeah, he was. But
that's my argument for a more dynamic shape, is that something that can adapt to be on the front foot or the back foot or the middle foot when you need to get a draw.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like, is it possible to? Of course, it's possible, right? It's possible to do that with a national team. It just seems challenging to make things too complicated.
Yeah,
when you only have these guys in,
Well, that brings us to the final topic, right? It's all about the quality of the coach, and I kind of feel that some of the problems with the 4-1-4-1 might just be Dave Sarachan problems.
Yeah. I don't hate him. I'm happy that he brought in all these young guys, although I do think any coach with any sort of reasonableness would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And he seems like a nice guy, but he's not that great of a tactician, and it bothers me. It still bothers me that he was hired as interim manager after being an arena assistant. It just didn't sit right, and still doesn't really sit right.
Yeah, and a lot of people feel the same way, and I think it's really hard to look past that, right?
Yeah, it's just more of the same, and not a guy with a great resume. So I guess the verdict from me on Sarachan is, thanks for your service, but be glad when you're gone.
I guess in hindsight, it would have been better to, because I feel like US Soccer were going to ask any coach to do this over the past year anyway, because it was the only way to get fans excited again and the correct thing in terms of kickstarting the next generation. So maybe in hindsight, we'll look back and say, oh, Dave Sarachan gave that guy his debut and gave that guy his debut, and we can look back fondly on all that. But maybe a coach who could have refined various shapes and systems to go up against teams could have picked the same players but done something better with it, right? Like maybe if it was Tab Ramos that was in charge for a year or so.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of Sarachan?
I think I'm pretty much in agreement with you. Except that I feel like if I was in his situation, right, where I'd been the assistant coach under Arena and I'd been given the opportunity to say like, hey, you can be the coach for a year and you can play all these kids, I totally would have done it, because it's an exciting opportunity, right? So I don't want to hold that against him. And then he's also been, assuming that he has a lot of, or a reasonable degree of authority in terms of selecting the team, he has made some bold moves, right? Like starting Josh Sargent in the last game and things like that. So
that's true.
I look fondly on him for those reasons. But I feel like it's a lot of, I think of him a guy who's tried to leap from one cliff to another tactically, and you can see him getting 7/8 of the way there, but just his fingertips are just missing as he's going for it. I think of the 4-1-4-1 against Brazil. Am I right in thinking that's the shape we ran out with?
Yes, it was Trapp and McKennie and Adams. And
I saw Adams and McKennie pushing really high, right, to go and try and pressure Brazil over the halfway line. And I could see in my head oh, that could work, right? That's an interesting idea. That's a thing I would quite like the US to do. But it just wasn't quite calibrated correctly, right? Trapp wasn't quite following enough behind, and just a lot of things where he's almost made it, but he just doesn't. You really see what a quality coach does in terms of fine tuning a shape and a system and a formation to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know what else to say about it. I'm happy that we're going to get a new coach soon.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to move on. I think as is every single US fan, right? So next coach, we talked about the possibility of a Berhalter appointment, but whoever it may be, do you expect them to look at the past year and say, this is good, let's keep going with the kids?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I mean, I would be surprised if they don't. One player we haven't talked about yet is Jonathan Amon, and I listen to your guys' show too, of course, and I know you weren't as high on Eamon as I was after the last game.
Yeah.
But he, at a minimum, he offers some attacking impetus, and he created some danger for Peru. He was the one who earned the free kick for the goal, and I thought when Saracen took him off, and brought on Julian Green, changed the shape a little bit. Basically, our attack went dark for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think, to talk Eamon in a second, you've already heard my concerns, right? I'm going to re-air them for listeners.
Yeah, please do.
Which is, I kind of like his directness, right? He essentially just wants to hit a really attacking pass, or wants to really go at people. And I feel like he basically loses possession one too many times. And I think against a really good team, we just wouldn't keep the ball long enough, because he would have too many turnovers.
Yeah, I think that's a little harsh, but he did have some like 2-3 very notable giveaways against Peru in the first half. But I guess all that to say, I think the next coach is going to come in and say, I've got Timmy Weah, Josh Sargent to throw in there with Christian Pulisic and maybe Jonathan Eamon, depending on if he's in my camp or yours.
Yeah, Pulisic's email and phone will start working again.
Right, and then I can try to sort out this Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams conundrum in the midfield, and maybe Delgado's a part of that, maybe Acosta. Will Trapp's probably not a part of that. Of course, it gets a little complicated if it's Berhalter and that's his guy. But I just think there's a lot that's been learned in these games that would have been learned kind of regardless of who the manager was, as long as these folks were called into these games. And a lot of it bodes well for the youth. That's my view of it.
Yeah, so I think even though we're frustrated right now, I think it was all worth it, right? Not the not going to the World Cup part, but the past year of being frustrated by no coaching hire, but we got to see all these young kids play. I think in hindsight, it'll turn out to be a good thing.
Absolutely, and it wasn't just like fun and cute to see them play. I think there are several of them, 5 or 6, who are in the 23 and the new coach will have learned a lot about them if he watches the tape.
Here's a question for you: can the kids win the Gold Cup?
Yes.
Yeah, even if we get a decent Mexico team that we're up against, you think this team has what it takes to lift the Gold Cup, which I know is not the hardest cup to lift. But
I mean, there would be some non-kids in there, Yedlin and Brooks, and I don't know if Delgado counts as a kid, or Acosta. Bobby Wood's going to be part of it, probably Josie Altidore, maybe Brad Guzan, Matt Miazga. So it's not going to be all kids, but.
Right, so if you add in enough of those experienced players, you'd be confident that that team's good enough to win the Gold Cup.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, and I also think I've just talked myself into being actually very excited to see it, because I've seen a lot of guys win the Gold Cup already. Now I want to see Tyler Adams win the Gold Cup. I want to see McKennie or Weah or Sargent. I want to see those guys. Get their nipples tweaked against El Salvador or something.
Yeah. No, I think they could do it. I mean, Sargent looked like our best striker in the pool against Peru. He looked like the best American striker. And
yeah, he could conceivably be Gold Cup top scorer. Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah, I'm all in. I'm all in as well. Did I see you tweet? Sorry, I'm taking us off topic here, but did I see you tweet that the Werder Bremen coach was teasing us? What had he been saying about Josh Sargent? Oh,
he said in the tweet I was quoting, which was in German, something along the lines of we don't know if he'll be there tomorrow. We'll see. Like something kind of ridiculous like that. And of course, he wasn't in the 18 today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they had a 40-year-old striker on the bench instead, right?
Right. And Pizarro scored a goal. I think Sargent's a matter of when, not if. Sargent's time is coming at Werder Bremen, and he'll be good for the U.S. too.
So it's patience.
And I think Eamon, Eamon will hopefully get many more chances to be calibrated to the speed of international soccer, which is obviously faster than it is in Denmark. and I thought he played really well in that second half. There's just like it's either these guys or we bring back Ali Bedoya or who are other wingers. We didn't even have any other wingers in the last World Cup cycle.
This is the weird thing of us having that missing middle generation, right? Is that we skip straight from late 20s, early 30s to teenagers.
Yeah. Paul Areola, I guess. He's a serviceable winger.
Final thing I want to, because I know we're getting late here, right? So I want to move towards wrapping it up. Is I did really want to talk U20 qualifying roster with you, but I heard from Travis Clark that you guys already had a conversation for the Top Drawer Soccer show.
We did. We talked on Friday, so that should be coming out in a couple days. I'm all over the Total Soccer Show empire. Yeah,
we've leaned hard on you. Leaned hard on you this week, right?
No, I love it.
You'll be Employee of the Month.
Thank you. Please send me a plaque.
Oh well. Adam, before we wrap up, is there anything that I didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, just one quick little thing on the U20s is that we talked a lot about Jalen Lindsey in that forthcoming episode of the Top Drawer Soccer Show, and it does look like maybe he will be recalled by SKC. Sinovic got a red card.
Oh, yes, for the handball on the line, right?
Yes, and Zusi was Zusi hurt in that game, or something bad was happening with Graham Zusi.
I'm not sure.
So there's a chance Tab Ramos will be even shorter in defense than he was already, which was pretty short.
Yeah, he has a habit of not picking enough centre backs, right?
Yeah, he had only one true centre back two, but Mark McKenzie is playing in MLS right now. So
I haven't heard that Top Drawer Soccer episode yet. I know that it's going to publish on Monday. Taylor is in charge of getting that done. Do you know who is on the 35-man roster, or is that in a file marked top secret somewhere?
It's in a file marked top secret somewhere, as far as I know.
That's weird, right? Don't we normally know? I remember knowing in the past who was available on the provisional roster to come in for the knockout round.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't think there's like a rule against releasing it. There's just not.
It's in the same file as real kickoff times.
Right.
I'm pretty
the same file as who the next coach will be.
With just the one name in it.
Yep.
So, Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And I want to really recommend to listeners that they go subscribe to the Scuffed podcast.
Thank you, Daryl. Good to be with you.